Hello, it's JJ DiGeronimo, and today we are talking about internal patterns. These are patterns that may be encouraging you to move forward and maybe holding you back from what you want to lean into. And I have a really special guest with me today. I have Karen Bashford. Hi, Karen. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, and thank you for having me here. Appreciate it.
Oh, I love it. And I love the work that you're doing. Much of the work that you're doing is helping women push through their internal barriers, which I see all too often. But before we get into that, I'd love to know really, how did you get into this work?
Okay, there's a long story beforehand where I experienced abusive relationships. I had trauma in my childhood from my own family. And basically, my whole life has been nothing but me abandoning myself. And I only discovered that when I had a nervous breakdown in 2023. And I've always been working with women and coaching them and mentoring them and such like, but it was almost if the breakdown opened doors for me. And I say I was truly blessed to have that breakdown. And I mean that sincerely because it gave me so many insights into what we do to ourselves without knowing it. And the lesson that I learned most was so many women so desperately want to improve their lives, but actually struggle simply because they don't know the patterns that keep repeating, that don't necessarily come from their own childhood, but can come from ancestral or even family. So there's a lot going on that I wasn't aware of, and that my breakdown created my awareness to. And with that, I now want to be able to educate women, but also help them to empower themselves through their own understanding of what they're doing to themselves.
That is amazing. To me, what really jumped out to me is that in 2023, you were ready to do the next level of personal awakening, but also share more in-depth gifts with women.
Definitely. Yeah. I was definitely ready for the breakdown, that's for sure.
So when you've been working with women for most of your career, it looks like, as basically some of the work that you've been doing to kind of peel back the onion. Yet you're going home to relationships where you're struggling to find your voice potentially, or even really break away from patterns that are making you feel smaller. Like how did that how did you work through that?
I didn't really. It was a case of accepting. And unfortunately, so many of us women just accept what is being given to us, basically, because we don't know any better. Or if we do know better, we're not willing to take the risk to change something because quite often, like for me, I had no idea how I was going to manage financially if I walked away from my partner, who basically had made my life hell to the point where I wasn't confident enough to say no more. So I think for a lot of women, it's that you have to reach that point where you go, I can't accept this anymore. And that's what happened to me in moving away from the relationships that were harming me. But my breakdown, as I said, opened, where my family was concerned, a door that had been shut and locked for most of my life. And
Mm.
opening that door felt as though somebody had finally said to me, Karen, you have your freedom to say no. And that made all the difference.
No is such a powerful word in so many ways. I had a women's event yesterday, and I have a power of no chart. And they were like, do you really just say no? And I say, I don't know. I generally give people other options or different people or things or different timelines. But it is powerful to know what you do and don't want to do. And I feel like for a lot of women that stay in relationships, it's not just about them. It's about their children. It's about the family structure. It's about what you said financially. And I think it's really hard to leave at times because there are so many pieces and parts that have to shift around. And sometimes in relationships, people make you feel like you're the crazy one.
Mm. And yeah, and that was happened big time for me, is that I was the one always at fault. It was never his problem, it was always my problem. And I'm also very conscious of the fact that for me, it was almost as if I knew if I left, I was going to lose my home because I was the one earning the money to pay for the house that we owned. And unfortunately, if I walked away, I knew I was going to lose that because he would claim half of it.
And how do you feel now about it? Looking back now, knowing what you know, what insights I think do you wish you knew then that you gathered along the path?
Don't be frightened to just say, okay, so if you take it, that's fine, because I am strong enough to rebuild. And that's what I've done. I was strong enough to rebuild. But I think the problem as well was the fact that he made my life so problematic going through a divorce because he didn't believe anything I said. So we spent probably £6,000 on solicitors' fees that we didn't need to because he just did not believe what I said.
Mm. What a test on so many levels. What a test. But I feel like now, I mean, just knowing you before this and working with you, you're so grounded. You are so settled in your own skin. And I believe that brings so much to the people, especially the women that work with you.
I'm grateful that I am now grounded. If you'd known me before, you would not have believed I was the same person. I was so unbelievably stressed. I was hyper, basically. I could not sit still. I could not relax. I just didn't know what to do to keep myself grounded, even to the point where I could go to sleep and sleep. But now it's like, okay, whatever happens is fine. I'm not fussed about that. I don't force situations. I trust that I will be guided to receive whatever I need to receive in a way that's most appropriate for me now. And even with the work I do, I know that the women that come to me are ready to work with me. I don't ever have to go looking for them, they will come to me.
That is so beautiful. And I think it's so important, you reference your energy before and after because I really do believe that your nervous system holds the score. And being in a personal relationship that keeps you upside down in many ways can be so damaging to your body, to your mind, to your soul. And so to me, it seems like you got to a point in your own life that you were ready. You were ready to break away, and losing the house obviously was probably very disappointing, but in the grand scheme of things, it almost shut the door on that part of your life.
Mm. Yes, and it did. Everything that's happened to me, from the illnesses that I've experienced, from the relationships that were abusive, to the financial challenges that I had, they were all lessons along my life journey. To that point where I reached that nervous breakdown simply because my body had gone, well, you've done everything now. Can we just stop this? And can we actually start living instead of just keeping the old patterns, the old behaviors, the old thoughts, the old problems going? Can we just stop? And that's what my body forced me to do. It forced me to stop. And the change in giving myself the opportunity to not keep going, because I literally just stopped. I spent 3 months crying. I just cried and cried and cried. And then I spent probably another 3 months adjusting to this new me and getting to know this new me. And then all of a sudden it's right, we're ready now. Can we now start doing something about this? Can we start understanding where you're going with this, what this is, why this happened? There were so many questions that come up that it was like, okay, I've got to give this time. And I'm very, very grateful that I was able to give it time. I've probably spent nearly a year recovering. Although I say after the crying, I recovered, but the lessons and the experiences that I then started to understand and go through to realize, well, I did this because this happened, which then tied into this. I gave myself that time and it made such a big difference.
Mm. That's so beautiful. And I just think so important for people to hear that it takes time to release the energy that you've been holding for so long. It's interesting right now because the astrology for me, I follow astrology. It has me right now thinking like, who is actually worthy of my time? Like instead of me thinking, do I want to spend time here or is this good or whatever? It's like, where do I want to share myself? And I feel like so many of us don't think of our time and our energy as something to earn or gain or connect with. But I love the idea of worthiness in a lot of ways because you have to cherish yourself to feel as though you are worthy enough to make that decision. So I've had to go through like a lot of internal pattern work and I'm still working through it. So can you talk a little bit about internal patterns, how that impacts you and how it impacts some of the women that you work with?
Okay, well, as I said earlier, internal patterns can be inherited. They can be simply passed down and you absorb them through your family's behavior and habits. But also, you obviously create your own patterns because of what happens in childhood. For me, the biggest lesson I learned from realizing that patterns are something that we create to protect ourselves is a realization that if you want to change, you then have to ask, what am I protecting? And for me, that change enabled so much to open up. And I found that with so many of the women I work with, they are protecting a story that they don't necessarily understand. And it's only in being willing to explore what that story really means. I'll give you an example of a lady who worked with me whose family history of she was basically handed over to a grandparent. And then from the grandparent, she went into boarding school. So she'd never really known her parents. And she did not understand why her parents would have handed her over to the grandparent. Even though she'd been told it was because they were working and things like that, she hadn't actually understood it at the level that mattered to her, which was in her body. So every time something happened, she'd automatically come back to this. Well, my parents don't think I'm good enough to be with them, so why would anyone else? So her whole life, up until she started working with me, really working with me, she was constantly questioning whether she was worthy, she deserved, whether she was good enough. And even if she got something that she wanted, she would then deliberately sabotage it without even knowing she was sabotaging it. And
Mm.
they're the kind of things we do without even realizing we're doing it.
Yes. And so do you get to these patterns through conversation? Like how do you get to the crux of what the pattern is if people don't even realize what their patterns are?
I usually start with a 30-minute conversation with my clients because I will not take anyone on board if I don't feel they're ready for the kind of work I will do. And I don't hypnotize, although I'm qualified hypnotherapist. I tend to just have them connect back to their own heart. And in their heart is this beautiful little child, the younger you, but it's not the younger you because it's your soul. For me, your soul will reside in your heart because you cannot live without your heart. So, as far as I'm concerned, you connect back to your little child in your heart. And if you ask that little child the questions, what do I need to know? That child will tell you everything you need to know. So, I won't necessarily know what they need to know, but in asking the child And having had that conversation, I have a rough idea as to where we need to perhaps start the conversation. And the conversation is them speaking to the little child and then getting guidance from the little child and working on that guidance. So basically, they are literally working on themselves with very little input from me.
Yes, but creating the space, knowing what questions to ask, guiding them through that is so powerful in so many ways. And I feel like just while you were saying it, I dropped down into my heart and I asked my inner child what my inner child wanted.
Yeah.
And it said, I want to be loved.
And that's all most of us ever want, is to be loved. But you won't love yourself until you know why you're doing certain things, because there'll always be occasions when you will automatically say, can't do that, not possible, because that's what you believe about yourself. How are you ever going to truly love yourself if you don't understand why you're doing things to yourself until you actually ask those questions? And the easiest questions are, what does my little child want? Or why am I repeating this? Because you will see patterns that constantly come up in your relationships, in your finances, in your life, in your health. You will see them if you start looking for them.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. And do you believe that once somebody sort of shifts that energy within themselves, that their outside shifts?
I've had one client who actually worked with me, and she was in a family that basically they all had their own opinions about her, and they would express them quite clearly to her. And we literally only did 2 sessions, and those sessions were 90 minutes each. The second occasion that she come for the session, she said to me, my family looks at me as if I'm different, and they're talking to me differently. And it was as if the energy within her had gone, I'm not putting up with this anymore. And it confused her family. And because they were confused, they were actually speaking to her better. They weren't spending all their time criticizing her. And by the end of the second session, when I spoke to her after that, she said, they're talking to me like normal human beings, as if I matter. And that was such a beautiful thing to hear, because she'd spent so long thinking she didn't matter to them.
That's beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. So she never said anything different. She just showed up differently energetically.
Yeah.
Hmm. This work is so powerful, and I feel like so many women have been programmed at so many levels here in this lifetime and others. And I think your work is so powerful because it's allowing women to reclaim the story that their soul holds for them.
Absolutely. And that's why I love this work so much, is because we all have our own journey. The trouble is, we give our energy to other people and forget that we need our energy for ourselves.
So, do you have any advice for women who mostly listen to this podcast? There's some men too, wonderful, which I love. But do you have any advice for somebody just listening to this, something they can do a little bit differently because they heard this?
My advice would be to stop worrying about other people and start worrying about yourself.
Hmm. Yes, prioritizing yourself, thinking about what you care about, understanding what's worth your time.
Yeah. And you are number one. You should only ever be number one, even with children. I appreciate, obviously, you have to give your time and energy to your children. But who's going to look after you if you don't look after yourself?
Yes, and our children are watching us too. And do we really want to teach our children to just give more than we have to
Mm,
give energetically?
mm, yes.
So, Karen, tell us a little bit about how people can reach out to you. All your links are below, but where do you mostly spend your time? And if they're interested in working with you, what do they do?
Right. I'm mostly on LinkedIn. I do the other platforms, but mostly LinkedIn. I share every day on LinkedIn. you can contact me through my website of karenbashford.com. And there's actually a form that you can book appointment to speak with me. And I'm more than happy to just have a 30-minute conversation just to ascertain whether I'm suitable for a start off. And if I can't help, I will usually recommend somebody else.
I think this is beautiful, Karen, and I really appreciate you sharing your story because I feel like so many of us can see us in your decisions. And I feel like it just empowers everybody knowing that you have chosen to lean into your truest self. And now you're helping others to do the same.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's really beautiful. Karen, I'm so lucky you're in this network of lightworkers, healers, and mystics. And I'm just really grateful to include you in the Together We Seek podcast. So thank you so much. And all your links are below. For those of you listening, I hope you reach out to Karen, connect with her on LinkedIn, and find your way to your inner self. I think so many of our messages are within. It's just creating the space and the connections and working with people that can help you uncover your truest gifts. So with that, yes, thank you, Karen, and thank you everyone for listening. And with that, we'll see you again here next time. Thank you so much.
Bye.